Hi everyone. I just want to say, don't trust me, okay? Don't trust me on this stuff. Trust yourself. Believe yourself. Make your own mind up. I'm not here to persuade you of anything. I'm just here to share what I've learned over the last 14 years. So 14 years. What's 14 years? You know, do I look 14 years old? Maybe. No, I don't, do I? I've got a grey hair. I'm receding up here. I'm 54. I was adopted at 5 weeks old, so I was adopted 54 years ago, and I was really lucky. I was really lucky. Adoption trauma, or any sign of it, didn't hit me until I was 40. So I'd 40 years without it. Not in denial of it, not in the fog of it. My experience, okay? My experience, not your experience. Not talking about your experience, I'm talking about my experience. My experience, I wasn't in denial. I wasn't in the fog. But I had, when it came like a raging torrent. And it was totally totally out of control. It was a feeling of anger and being unloved like I'd never felt before. My birth mother didn't effing love me enough to effing keep me. All she got me was this effing consolation prize, the teddy bear. This fella, I'm doing this on video and and audio for my podcast. So for the listeners on my podcast, I'm holding up Ted. He's about, I don't know, about 8 inches tall. He's a regular teddy bear in a woolly vest and some brown woolly trousers. Ted didn't want to appear naked, you know, in case that upset anybody. We don't want to see a naked bear. So there was this huge torrent, this huge, like, raging torrent of anger and of feeling unloved, and all that anger was directed in that moment towards my birth mother and how wrong she had been. How dare she? And adoption trauma is well, what is it? For me, in that moment, it's that that's feeling of it's those intense anger. It's that intense anger, very intense anger, rage, a huge rage. Now, I felt anger before in my life, but it had never been anything to do with adoption. It never had been anything to do with being rejected, being unloved. Nothing to do with that. So was it in that moment? In that moment, it felt that it was all to do with the adoption. What is adoption trauma? So I guess one way we're looking at it, we can look at it by what we do as adoptees, our behavior, you know, violence caused by violent outbursts like the one I had. So you can look at it as behavior. We can look at it as feelings. We can look at it as the feelings that I felt. We can look at it at the thoughts, the sponsoring thoughts behind those feelings. That feeling of not being good enough, that feeling of being rejected, that feeling of being discarded, that feeling of being given away, surrendered, put in the bin, put in the garbage if you are if you're listening in the States. Those sorts of thoughts. But most of the time, it's looked as a thing, isn't it? So the psychologist, I was talking to a guy that's done a lot of work on this week, Carl Stensky, a fellow adoptee, and he was talking about all the developmental issues in the brain and the neurons firing and all this stuff, and the psychologists, think the psychologists put forward adoption trauma as a thing. So it's a thing, a physical thing, an object. And I've been mulling that over a lot in the last 48 hours. Is it a thing? Is it an object? Is adoption trauma an object? Now, I saw it. I saw it as a feeling. When it came to me, when adoption trauma hit me, I saw it as a feeling. And feelings come and go, don't they? And feelings aren't who we are, and so are thoughts. Thoughts aren't who we are. They come and go. So we can't be, identity. People struggle with identity. Adoptees struggle with identity, but a lot of us, as in the human race, we kind of like we're wedded to our thoughts, and we think that kind of like our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings are one great thing that we put together, like our personality. Yeah, it's a mishmash of all those different things. But are we that? Or are we our story of what happened to us? But that's not us, is it? That's not me. That's what I discovered about me. I'm not my story. Adoption is something that happened to me, but it doesn't define me. I call myself an adoptee, but that's just a shorthand. It's something that happened to me. It isn't who I am. It isn't who I am. And that's incredibly freeing, But I want to go back to this adoption trauma as a thing, all the brain science, all the psychology, all this obsession with this stuff, that it's a thing, that it's an object, that it's a physical thing. It's some broken synapses in our head. Well, if it is a thing, like it is a wound, it is a physical thing, like a cutting our hands, like that primal wound thing. If it is a thing, then how come the question that struck me, right? If adoption trauma is a thing, how come most healings aren't physical? So there's all sorts of healings out there. There's all sorts of healings, and one of the main ones is therapy. We're going to therapy, but therapy isn't. We talk in therapy. We don't do anything in therapy, do we? We don't change. We don't go into our brain and do something with it. We don't put drugs into it. And so why is this? Why, if we've got a physical solution, how come we've got a non-physical? Sorry, we've got a physical problem, a physical trauma. How come the healings that work aren't physical? They're to do with changing, our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs. Not going in and trying to change them, but having a realization. And this is what struck me. What struck me in terms of how I've healed. And I want to be very clear on what I mean by healed, right? Is I see myself as whole. And I think I'm really, really fortunate to do that. I'm really fortunate to have found some great teachers that have helped me see myself as whole. Does that mean that I don't have any thoughts of insecurity? No. I have thoughts of insecurity all the time. I have feelings. I feel insecure all the time. Well, I feel I don't feel insecure all the time. I have feelings of insecurity all the time. But I don't see myself as wounded, right? The opposite of wounded is whole. The opposite of incomplete is complete. I see myself as complete. I was talking to another guy, and he said, well, my healing, I'm ongoing with my healing. I thought, well, what helped me heal? What is it that helped me heal? Right? And it was an insight. And this is a bit weird, right? Okay, but just bear with me, right? I didn't think I needed to heal until I thought I was wounded. Yeah. So I thought my problems were with my thoughts and my feelings. I didn't think what I learned, about 12 years ago, is that I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with negative thoughts. I'm okay despite feeling insecure. That doesn't make me actually insecure, because who I truly am, that spirit, that life force, that chi, that ghost in the machine, that controller of the body. When we say, this is my nose, the owner of the nose, not the body, that's not us, right? The owner of the nose. I am whole, and I have insecure thoughts, and I have feelings of insecurity. And one of the learnings, one of the mentors I've come across, an author that I've come across on the way, is a guy called Sid Banks, and he was an adoptee. He died a few years ago. Scottish welder who had an enlightenment experience, as in he saw something about himself. And what triggered his? So he's an adoptee. What triggered? And he's got the same initials as me. That's a bit weird, isn't it? S. Sydney Banks and Simon Ben. I don't. And we're both adopted, right? And I study his work and I study from people that have studied his work. And what got him? One of the things that led him to his experience of wholeness, right? His experience of being whole rather than wounded. Yeah. Healing. What helped him heal was somebody said to him, "You're not insecure, Sid. You just think you are. You just think you are." So that was me. I as in my spirit, me as spirit, not as in me as Simon Ben, not as in me as my personality, but the true I, the unconditioned soul, not the ego, right? So you got the kind of like you got the true soul, which is like often I use this metaphor of the diamond. The diamond is at the center. It's like the center of the apple, mixing of metaphors, right? So imagine imagine a peach stone. There, this is a better one, right? Imagine the peach stone. Imagine a peach, and you've got all this ego, which is the flesh of the peach, and then the nut of the peach is actually not a nut; it's a diamond. You can see I didn't prepare this one. That's who we are underneath our personality. That that diamond, that the nut of the peach, is the truth of who we are, that spirit. And that diamond, or that peach nut, is unwoundable. Now, the peach nut is a physical thing. It can be broken. It can be scratched. Get a knife, it can be cut in half. Right. The thing about us, the thing that I've discovered about who we are, that truly spirit thing, it isn't a thing. It isn't a thing. So the trauma is in the flesh of the peach, not in the nut of the peach. But most of us, me, I'm talking about me here, I didn't know the difference between the flesh of the peach, the ego, that kind of identity stuff, and the nut of the peach, which is the stuff that we truly are. But this is a metaphor. The nut isn't a thing. The spirit isn't a thing, like wind isn't an object. And because it isn't an object, it can't be wounded, can't be scratched, it can't be broken. We talk about being heartbroken, right? So I think about one of my first memories, sort of like traumatic memories, shall we say, was losing my granddad when he was 7. And I remember sharing the story, telling my teddy bear, right, telling this fella Ted about the fact that granddad had died, and I was absolutely heartbroken. We use these metaphors. My granddad died of a heart attack. His heart stopped working. His heart had a physical defect, and he died of it. Tragic. He's only 63. That's like 9 years older than me. Scary stuff, right? I was heartbroken. He had a heart attack. It's a different thing. The heart attack, the heartbreak feels real. It feels real. It feels real. It feels like we've been hit by a sledgehammer. That's how it feels. But it isn't. It isn't real. It's not real as compared to a heart attack. A heartbreak and heart attack are two different things. One's physical and one's emotional. You can't wound. You can't wound something that is spiritual. And we are, as one of the French philosophers said, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Spiritual beings. We are spirits. We are spirit. And spirit is fundamentally unwoundable. Thanks a lot for listening. See you soon.